So Don't Cry Wolf is a communications consultancy, so we work across branding, brand strategy, and PR as well. We started Don't Cry Wolf with a view to help honest organisations communicate honestly and really strip out a lot of the bullshit, a lot of the nonsense that takes place in the communications industry, and actually start helping organisations communicate and connect with their audiences transparently, showing a little bit of humility, sometimes showing a little bit of vulnerability, but all the time keeping true to themselves and their brand purpose. I mean, the fact is that people trust honest people. We're absolutely consumed these days by content that is either seen as untrustworthy, fake news, is given a kind of impression of being heavily branded or heavily commercial, and actually the public are becoming much more aware of this these days. In fact, what they expect is actually for organisations, for brands to make mistakes, but when they do make mistakes, to own up, to understand what the problem is and to help solve some of those problems. The only way you can do that is by being that little bit more vulnerable, that little bit more attentive to your core of your philosophy, and actually communicating in a way that feels human, that feels honest, approachable, emotive. First things first, find out what you want your audience to feel, not what you want them to buy. I think this is one of the key areas that we keep sort of coming across as we do our branding work or our communications consultancy. A lot of organisations spend a lot of time working out the path to purchase, or trying to understand how much of something someone's going to buy. The actual core thing for a communications perspective and from a branding perspective is to work out, what do you actually want them to feel? What is the experience that you want them to walk away with every single time? Do you want them to feel elated, angry, sad, happy? What is that emotion that you want them to feel? Capture that emotion and then work out how you're going to communicate that, how you're going to get them to feel that emotion. And I think that's absolutely critical. The best brands out there right now, like your Patagonias of this world, they're doing this on such a perfect level. People aren't making that purchase decision because, of the functionality or the price point. They're making that purchase decision because they feel a connection with that brand. And that is ultimately what you need to try and achieve. The other area is, don't be something for everyone. It's absolutely crucial in this space, in this branding and communications world. Don't just try and be for everyone, because you'll end up being for nobody. Work out who that target audience is and stick to it. If you only work with 3% of the market, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that 3% you are communicating with on that honest, transparent and open level, and you really, really understand them. So we spend an awful lot of time trying to understand our audience, but not trying to understand them from the perspective of, what purchase decisions do they make, or not necessarily even what kind of media outlets are they into, or how do they consume their news, but actually what really turns them on, what gets them engaged. A lot of people think that if you're selling technology to CIOs, then the only thing that CIOs are ever caring about the tech specs of something, or whether something's secure. Actually, a lot of CIOs watch Love Island. So perhaps your creative theme should start with something a little bit more emotive, a little bit more personal. And I think this is absolutely critical for brands. It's not looking at an audience from this perspective of what's their buying habits, what are their buying patterns, and what do they want from our product, but looking at them and thinking, okay, what are they into at this moment? What are they talking about? What are they discussing? Is there something that they're sitting around the family table with and chatting to their kids about? Is there something that they're getting together on a Saturday with their mates and they're getting involved in a certain activity? What is that absolute nut? What's that trend that they're getting involved in? And build your creative campaign off of that. Because the important and the most absolutely elegant creative campaigns that take place are ones that weave seamlessly into your audience's lives. Not ones that suddenly just sort of slap them in the face with something, but ones that they feel as though that they consume something that has been effortless to take part in, and they feel absolutely elated by being a part and parcel of that. And that only comes from truly understanding what turns them on, what gets them excited, what gets them emotionally reactive. Well, the first thing is, it's a huge opportunity for SMEs these days. We're seeing consumer trends now where individuals, where the public are much more trusting into, local, smaller, more active brands than they are on these huge conglomerates. Actually, to an extent, it's harder work for bigger brands to make cut through than it is for SMEs. Bigger brands can absolutely, dominate with huge amounts of advertising campaigns and dominating billboards and TV and what have you. But actually, from an SME's perspective, this is your opportunity to really identify your purpose and the reason why you exist. Find that gorgeous, beautiful little nub of an audience that you want to work with. Understand what turns them on and focus on them relentlessly. Give them the content and the creativity that they're craving. Don't try and pretend or act like a big brand. Instead, find your area of expertise, your niche. Your audience will love something and will understand something more than any other brand that's out there. So focus on that element. Focus on that one little bit. Keep pulling at that thread and you will find that success rate grow. If you get it really right, what will ultimately happen, what you should be aiming for, is that small niche audience that you started with and that you tickled, that you excited, they start sharing that content. They start getting it into other groups. They start talking about your brand, and suddenly you go from being a small, perhaps slightly unaware organization into something that feels as though it's bubbling under the surface. And the next question that the big brands will have is, how the hell do we combat an SME like you?